Just preparing our live stream here.
That is fun. Meeting is now streaming live on YouTube. Heck yeah, man. Good job.
Awesome. There we go. Like I just said, every time I get this thing to work, I'm excited about it. Really excited today, guys, to be joined by Coach Ron Mckie. I know a lot of people who follow us, are also very familiar with his work. But one of the really the pioneers in terms of bringing football to everybody with his stuff on the spread offense through YouTube. So, Coach, thanks for making the time to talk to us today. And if you just want to give a quick shout out to where people can find some of your work on YouTube and otherwise, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me, man. I've always wanted to talk to Canadian coaches because I always get questions like, hey, how can we do this up in Canada? And I'm like, I have no idea because y'all have an extra dude and y'all are motioning all over the place. So I'm excited for this. You can find me if you just go somewhere, search Coach Mckie, Mckie. I'm on YouTube. Right now, I'm also running a summit, an online summit. I've got Hal Mummy, June Jones, Joe Ozafet, and a bunch of other Nick Caduti, everything like that. If you just go to scoreatwillsummit.com, you can get the information there. Awesome. And yeah, man, let's talk some mesh.
Absolutely. June Jones will get our Canadian audience fired up as a CFL, sometime in the CFL. They're obviously amongst other, really.
Like, yeah, and the XFL and the CFL are like going to start playing against each other or something like that.
Yeah, hot topic up here for sure. That's a whole other discussion. But
June's got a distinct advantage being that he's coached in pretty much every professional league there is.
Absolutely. However it works out, it'll be really interesting. And, more good, sustainable football is a good thing. So, however that plays out, it'll be exciting and interesting to see. But like Coach kind of alluded to, we're going to talk mesh today. It's something, that I think is really common on our side of the border as well. We were just kind of briefly, talking through it, but there's so much carryover, and especially with teams being in the spread a ton. It's if you turn on any CFL game or, even if you're watching the Canadian U Sport or even the high school level, it's a really common concept. And I think people understand in general the concept, or they can find lots of resources to understand what is mesh. So if that's what you're looking for, there's lots of stuff out there. What I wanted to talk to you, the expert, about today is how do you coach it, right? How do you take the X's and O's on the chalkboard, and something I think a lot of coaches haven't been able to learn about and understand, and get the most out of it? Because that's one of the things when I watch the really good air raid teams, it's really impressive to see. Yes, they're running their certain subset of plays, but they're able to do it at a higher level than other people. And I think a lot of it comes back to how you coach it, how you drill it. So the first part that I want to ask you about is when you have those two receivers running the mesh, from the moment the ball is snapped, or even maybe if there's some pre-snap stuff, what are your coaching points? And then we'll get to how do you drill it? How do you practice that execution as they, get into their routes and run those two mesh routes?
Well, they have to first, this is something I found, and I'm going to be completely honest. I am not the expert. The expert is Drew Piscopo. You need to reach out to him. He's the man. But you need to find, mesh doesn't work if your two inside wide receivers are always scared about getting hit. So if you have two guys that are always have their head on a swivel and they're worried about getting smacked or something like this may not be the best play for you. What we teach when we do it is one step up and then you're crossing, and you want to ideally cross in front of the mic. So I try to teach our kids, hey, where's the center? Find the linebackers directly over the ball. That's who you're going at. That's where you want to set the mesh. We only run it one way, from right to left. So the Y, we never run it when the Y is on the left side. We only run it when it's on the right. And the Y sets it, and then we have our F come underneath and do it. And the reason why we have the two slots do it is at a 2x2, because those are the two best players that we have, and we want the ball to go to them. We stress it that they have to slap hands, and the F always has to make the Y right. If he's too far away, we don't fuss at the Y, we fuss at the F. Now, if the Y is setting the mesh point like 8 yards deep, then that's the Y's fault, and we get on him. But, just find that guy no deeper than 6, slap hands, and then we're trying to tell them to look and see, is there someone directly across from you? So once I slap hands and I'm going and I see you sitting right there, well, I'm just going to stop. because you're already in that area. I need to stop and look at the quarterback. If I slap hands and I see that you're not there and there's nothing in front of me, I'm just going to keep on running until I get the ball. And that is really hard to do because a lot of kids, you're giving them freedom to make the play, and they run their routes, but they don't run their routes with their eyes up, actually looking to see what's going on. And that's something you have to coach over and over again.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, especially like some of the high school coaches I've talked to, who want to do more of it because they see it as such a prominent, concept in the CFL game, is there's so much traffic in the middle of the field, and you break it down so clearly. Hey, you're looking at the linebacker over the center, right? And you're trying, after you pass, after you have that hand slap, right? You're just looking at open grass or a defender. How do you practice that? Like, what are some escalations to, okay, we've talked about it, we've maybe showed some film of the good reps, now you're actually on the field. What's the drill setup? How do you maximize efficiency in trying to build the reps to make sure they can make those decisions?
Well, first, it's something you have to do every day. And David, I do see you in chat. Yes, it is pizza day on Friday. I always eat pizza. It's the family. That's the Mckie tradition.
There you go.
We set up, stolen straight from Hal Mummy, from the 5 going in, and we have our meshers and the guy running the corner. So that's what we do. And then we have 3 quarterbacks, and we just go through it. So the first quarterback drops back, plants on the 3rd step, he's throwing the corner always. The other 2 are looking there, then they're coming to the mesh. And it's me and another coach that are sitting separate. The guys have to go and slap hands, and then they're looking at Coach and I. If we come up saying that we're blitz and there's all that space, they keep going. If we open up in a zone turn and drop back, they have to sit there and show hands. And it is something you have to do every day. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. Again, and I got this from a coach that coached in South Carolina, won 3 state championships in 5 years, ran the True Air Raid. After they won their last state championship, he went to Clemson, won a national championship, so he knows a couple of things. We do mesh in the spring and the summer until we get the fall. And if we get the fall and as a staff, we're like, hey, we're not that good with it, we'll just can it. We'll just shelf it and come back to it in the spring, because it does take a lot of reps. If you do this, if you're deciding to go down this road and say, hey, screw it, this is the play, you have to rep it every single day for at least 10 minutes. And you have to call it a lot during 7-on-7s, during team. You have to call it during a game. I found myself, when we had it, we would put all this time in, and then I would totally neglect it in a game. And it's like, why are we wasting 10 to 15 minutes on practice when you add everything up for this play that we never call in a game? So we would shelf it. The 1 year or 2 years we were really good at it, man, we ran it all the time in practice. And the key thing, it's not so much the wide receivers, it's the quarterback. And what I tried to do and what worked with this quarterback that was in the system is I said, hey, mesh is no different than from corner, where you're going to go corner, flat, snag. Well, mesh, it's corner, flat, mesh. So it's the same read, same carryover. It just looks different to the defense. And that really helped him out when we were running it all the time.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And one of the things, especially up here with the extra receiver and the guys in motion pre-snap, is like reading and recognizing space is so important, because really you have a whole, before you even get to the running back on the check down, now you've got 5 guys in the route. And I think, building, we actually did a video with a really, really good young offensive coordinator in U Sport, which is our college football up here, on how they use mesh and pairing it with different things, but always keeping that read for the quarterback the same. In terms of, if you get, you mentioned guys being worried about getting hit. Do you guys do anything where you practice them getting hit as you run the mesh? Like, you got coaches out there with bags or working, kind of getting off a jam. What's that aspect of it? Or is it something where you just say, hey, like, you've got to run through your landmark and you're just more trying to avoid that contact on your way through?
We have sometimes gotten bags and try to tee off and everything like that. But I'm going to be completely honest, I'm a fat ass. So after a while, after a couple of times doing that, I get sore. They're a lot stronger than us. So we have gone in the past. I've used one of those pool noodles and like just beat the heck out of them. So they're not so worried about the hit. And then you try to tell them, hey, listen, if they do hit you, it's a PI. So you get 15 yards and they're really not going to hit you that much. it reinforces to them as well that, and then also that comes back to the game plan as you as a play caller. If they're really pounding them going across the middle, well, that means the flanks, the outside are open because they're more worried about the crossers. So start attacking the outside, make those guys loosen up a little bit. Then you can start running the meshes over and over again. And it's really, I mean, and this is sacrilegious in football, but if it doesn't bite as a puppy, it's not going to bite as an adult. So if the kids are shy from hitting, then there's no amount of drills or anything you can do to build that up. And, you know, it is what it is. I don't really fight it. That's also something I remember Art Browse talking about when he first got to Baylor. He had a really fast guy, and they ran a lot of shallow crosses and everything like that. And that guy would not run a shallow because he was worried about getting hit. But he was really fast. So one day as a staff, they just came together and like, you know what, why are we running him shallow? He's really fast. Why don't we just run vertical and let him outrun people? And that's what they did, and the offense took off. So don't try to fit a square peg in a round hole if that guy doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think there's always hesitation because you always think of all these things that can go wrong. And sometimes it's just simple to say, hey, you know, if this is the challenge we're getting, instead of trying to make something that, you know, maybe isn't as effective in that situation, you're better off, like you said, to, you know, attack where they're giving you space. The second, or I guess kind of the third question, because you've already kind of broken down both the, you know, how you drilling it, just lots of reps and making that read decision every day, you know, and then getting your reps in the game. Once you catch the football, and this could be, you know, beyond mesh, really, it could be any situation. How do you help your guys, you know, develop the skill of getting yards after catch? Because one of the things that I think I wrongly assumed as a young coach is that your best athletes are your best yard after catch guy. And sometimes they are because they get into space, they're, you know, really elusive. But some of the best yard after catch guys that I've been around have been, you know, really savvy players, and maybe not your best athlete, but they just make better decisions. How do you work with your receivers in your program, whether it's after catching the mesh, you know, or really any other concept to develop that skill of getting yards after the catch?
We do a drill every single day called the settle up and noose, where you get 2 trash cans, and it really works. It's a building block too, finding grass and taking it. 2 trash cans, you work on your release, you get really slow. The quarterback's going through the progression of whatever route you want them to that day. We've mixed it up from stick to corner to Y cross, things like that. And once the magic part is that once they stop at that other trash can and then they turn, they're showing their hands to the quarterback, and the quarterback's putting it on whatever shoulder away from the trash can. So if the trash can's on my right, your left, the quarterback wants to put it here. And then we just teach them, hey, when the quarterback puts it here, you got to trust them, and you turn in that direction and get upfield. We usually put it on the 3 to 4 yard line so that when they do turn, they have to give a little burst and they have to score to get them ready to score all the time, because we try to make them assume that every time they touch the ball, they are going to score. So we would do drills like that over and over and over again. And then 7-on-7, that's when it's worse, because, you know, when you make a little throw, they want to start juking and jiving, and they'll be on the outside of the numbers and they'll cut all the way across the middle of the field. We just have them do push-ups. I'll blow my whistle and they got 20 push-ups. They just get out, do 20 push-ups, next guy in, because they don't understand that you cut across there. That's where everybody's at. You're going to get your head knocked off. The end zone is north and south. It's not east and west. So when you do the settle up and noose drill, when you really emphasize getting up the field when you catch the ball, when you get them believing that the quarterback is going to put it on the right spot, because that does take some trust. You know, they think they know better, and sometimes you're going to see a guy catch it here and turn this way. And the best thing is if they do that and they get rocked, they'll be like, hey, buddy, the quarterback put it over here on the reason. Trust them. He sees everything. You really don't. And after about 4 or 5 weeks, it should be second nature.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point. And, you know, the thing that I found, especially up here again with 3-down football, you know, moving the chains is so important, right? Like getting ahead of the stick. So if you're going to throw the ball, say a mesh route, you catch your underneath guy in the mesh, he catches the ball 3 yards downfield. Well, especially for us, you better go get 3 more yards, right? Because if not, you know, we're right away in a situation where we need 6 yards. We're going to have to punt the football away. So I think that's a huge point. And one of the things I've been thinking about recently, you know, we're getting back to football here, different depending on, you know, the area of the country. Some areas are doing really well, other areas not so much. but it's been all flag football for a year now in Canada.
Okay.
And so I can't wait till we get back out on the field and people are actually tackling. One of the most things I'm most nervous for is receivers are going to be working moves from, flag practice where they can make 19 different moves and there's no physical reminder that maybe that was a bad decision. So I think as coaches, even when we're in non-contact situations, being able to bring some of those ideas, hey, when we get back to the real football contact world, right, there's going to be a physical, price to pay for your decision to turn the wrong way. If the quarterback threw you on that left shoulder, being able to drop step and get yourself up the field, is really important. I saw a question in the chat there from Coach Butler. Most important for high school level coaches, how do you protect it up front? Do you guys, and I know there's some differences in the Canadian American game here, but a lot of the protection stuff is similar. If you're running your mesh concept, what's your most common protection you use?
We only have one protection. It is our half
it.
slide. We always half slide away from the initial read. So if we're reading to the right, we'll half slide to the left, and then vice versa. And it really works. It works really well. We don't have that many sacks. Usually if we do have sacks, it's not on the O-line. It's on the quarterback just holding the ball too long, locking in on that one guy. And we have no issues. And it really works. Sometimes I think coaches put too much, just like you put too much in everything. A lot of coaches I know have a sprint out protection, have a scat protection, have a half slide protection, have a full zone protection, have play action, waggle type protection. And that's a lot on the kids. So we figured just get great at one thing and then hopefully, 80-20 it and just get great at it. That's all we do. That's a lot of what our O-line does in practice is passing off twists, stunts, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference. And, especially up here where we don't have as much time with our players, football is not in most high schools, it's not a year round thing, and I'm sure, not that you guys don't have a lot of multi-sport athletes too, right? But you have such a short season and a finite opportunity to get reps. I think that's one thing as an O-line guy myself, I've been in, situations where even when I was, playing in high school, where I felt like it was either we got no communication on protection or we got way too much. Right. It makes you feel good as an offensive lineman knowing, hey, we have, a couple hundred reps at this. It's not, hey, we're going to try this new protection to deal with this, issue we're having. I think that, goes a long way. And like you said, when your guys are comfortable and confident, in the protection, it's usually physical execution is physical execution. You got to go block the guys no matter what the X's and O's are. But, when it comes to passing off stunts and stuff, I think that's a huge benefit. No other questions in the chat right now. Just kind of one that, came to mind for me is when you're running your mesh, and you're talking about, progressing from the corner route and coming back down from the mesh, what's your footwork at the quarterback spot? And I'm assuming it's in the gun.
Yeah, we went this year to which is all the rage, the Longo back pedal. And really, I didn't learn it from Phil Longo. I got that talking to Dave Marsh, who's been around a little bit. And it really, if it's a right foot, okay, so your right foot is up. You're pushing off that right foot. That's one. Then your left, that's two. Then you're planting, three, right there, just straight up backwards. And the reason why I like that is I can now see the entire field. Whereas if I drop step and turn and then do it, I'm kind of closed off. So if something would to pop open this way, let's say I have a wheel or something on the left side, it's pretty difficult to go from here to come back. And we time it and I get really on the quarterbacks. It's 1-2 plant throw, 1-2 or push off 1-2 throw. And that's really, we had the same drop back for everything. Just we were this year with COVID, we really had to streamline a bunch of stuff. I took out a lot of stuff because this was my first time at this school. So we implemented a whole new offense in COVID. The most this school has ever thrown in its history in one season was 1,900 yards. We got half of that in 6 games. And the quarterback, we simplified it so well that the quarterback was a senior this year. The last time he played was 9th grade. On JV, which is our younger program, got hurt 10th grade, got hurt 11th grade, came back, wasn't projected to start. Our main starting quarterback left. So this is a kid that hasn't played quarterback in 4 years. I had to come in. We simplified it, and it took off because we made it so simple. Same footwork for everything, same blocking scheme for everything. We really, toward the end of the year, only had 2 run schemes, inside zone and counter, a couple of screens, and we just went with it. And we halfway decent, man, in this season of COVID.
Yeah, and that's something I think all of us, I know for myself, and obviously this is part of what I do, and I enjoy learning more and more about the game, and I'm looking at my laptop the other day, and I have so many files on, oh yeah, stole this from here, stole that from there. I got to remind myself, like when we get back, we're actually starting the summer program I coach for, again, a little different up here. We have like AAU football essentially, because the high school programs aren't as developed, so it kind of gets split 2 directions. But the program that I work with, we're starting to install our offense and defense in the next 2 weeks. And I'm looking at all this stuff on my laptop and going, okay, I got to make sure I'm coming in with 1 or 2, what's the bread and butter of what we want to be able to do, and, move on from there. I think the simplicity thing is huge. And especially when you bring it back to the start, when you want guys to be able to make confident decisions in game, right? Am I going to carry through or am I going to shut it down? The fewer decisions they have to make, the better they're going to make all those decisions. Just another point here that came to my mind as we were talking through it. As a receiver, if you're going to run the mesh route, is anything taught differently if you recognize pressure? So the defense bringing 1 more than you can block, or is the timing of the mesh for you guys set up such that nothing needs to change? You can just run the mesh and you should be, a viable option on time when your quarterback gets to the end of his drop?
No, that's a great question. We do that sometimes. If we're going and before I slap hands, I see the linebacker that's closest to me, blitz, turn your head around right now. And we actually hit that a couple of times during the game. And once you hit that a couple of times, the defense isn't going to blitz that much. Another thing is we kind of tell our guys that are the quarterback, hey, your safety outlet, it's not the mesh, it's that back. You would be amazed at how many times defenses forget about the back and the passing scheme. And that really worked to our advantage in our 4 verts because we would swing the back to the 4 vert side and that overhang. Everyone wants to run the match stuff. So if 2 goes vertical, the line, that apex has to wall them off and go with them, and it turns the man-to-man. Well, there's a lot of grass over there, so just dump it off. And we try to have a lot of carryover with that. So that is what we did to combat, people blitzing that much.
Yeah, I think that it's a great point. And I've, like I mentioned before, I coach running backs, and that's always, we invested a lot more in our check release stuff in the last couple of years in terms of developing it and, stressing it to the quarterbacks. It just blew me away how many times you don't turn the ball over because you didn't try and make a throw or you didn't hold the ball in pressure, longer than you would have just getting the ball to the running back. And we were fortunate, the guy I was coaching was, an All-Canadian, the equivalent of an All-American. It's like, hey, anytime we get a chance to just throw in the ball in space, we would, if I paused the clip here and we were running outside zone and we had this player in that much space, we'd all be blown away. It's the best blocked outside zone of all time. I think it's a great point. It's something up here I don't see as much in the high school game. And, like it is anywhere, so many places, your best athletes playing tailback, that's a great way to get the ball to your best player. So Coach, that was, really succinct, great job, helping us, some of our guys out with, how you can drill that mesh. Is there anything else about coaching or drilling the mesh? If you were going to say, if you were doing what you just did and you went to a new program and you wanted the mesh to be a staple or a big part of your offense that you think coaches would need to know?
It's going to look ugly when you first install it, and you got to trust system. Again, if you are going to go all in, you have to go all in, good days and bad. And it's going to take time, just like all good things do. You don't see a flexbone guy go into a school, run flexbone once or twice. It looks ugly, and he's like, you know what, piss on it. Let's go 5 wide. It's something that it's a part of your identity. So if you're going to go all in, you've got to go all in. And you can make it as simple or as complicated as possible. My thing is, though, don't keep tinkering with it. Just pick a way to do it and go. Like Mummy's way, which is similar to Leach's. But then you have all those other people, the mesh, the pyramid, the sit, and all of this different stuff. And when you do that, you confuse your kids. And to go back to what you're saying, Coronication, everybody has this massive binder of plays and everything like that they want to run. You've just got to get good at a few of them and have a several tweaks. Don't go tag happy, because when you add a lot of tags, you may not think it's going to be a new play, but to the kids, it's a new play because it's a new thought process based off the original one. So just go all in, have a few plays, tags, and just live with it. I mean, you've decided this is what you're going to hang your hat on. Get great at it.
For sure. Awesome. We had another question in the chat there, and I know you got to get out of here soon, but I might just throw this last one out here. What would to you would be that line? How many times a game would you want to call it for it to be worth the practice time? You know, what's your kind of, and that might be a process for anything in your offense, right? Like, how many times do you want to be calling it a game, or is it more so? Because I guess it's kind of, I view mesh, it's almost like the inside zone of the pass game. Like, it can be good against anything if you're good at it, right? And if you're bad at it, it's not going to be good against anything.
No, I completely agree. It's like, okay, for instance, let's take, you said inside zone. Is that your main run? How many times do you run that?
Yeah.
But take that same percentage and apply it to the passing game. What's the same equivalent in your passing game? For us, 4 verts was our main play this year, and stick. We ran that a crap ton. So that's what we started to practice a crap ton in. Mesh, I mean, like I said, we got rid of mesh this year because we were running all that time in practice, and we were maybe calling it once every other game. And the practice time to game call ratio was out of whack. I would say something like 10 plus plays in a game. And if not, I mean, you have to look at it. Am I willing to spend 10 minutes every single day of practice to only call the play 3 times in a game? And I think you can, if that is the case, then you can just take that 10 minutes every day of practice and apply it to whatever else you run a lot. Inside zone. If you're good at inside zone and you take that 10 minutes and you're practicing even more, how much better can you be? And I think that's just something every coach has to decide upon to do.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And, I think that's, I might have to save this and replay it for myself the next couple months, to make sure, hey, I said this, I better stay true to it. But I think that point, is super crucial. The last question, I promise, is actually the last one. I just keep getting good ones that come in. You talked about having a couple tweaks, and I find that's something as an offensive coach, I'm very guilty of that. I'm very of saying, oh, it's the same play because we're reading it out like this, but now this guy does this different and this guy does this different. And if we get pressure, this changes. Well, you're right. It's a different play. In terms of wrinkles off your base mesh, what's your favorite one? Maybe it's something you've done before, just something you've seen recently. If you were going to dive in on the mesh and you wanted to have one more wrinkle, what would that wrinkle be?
The wheel with the running back out of the backfield. That is killer. Like we were saying earlier, teams forget about the running back. And if you have a guy that has a little bit of hands and you're running him opposite of the read, so if the read's to my right and the back's wheeling to the left, especially at a 2-back, I don't know what that is in Canadian.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah. No, we got 2-back, just got another receiver.
That is freaking deadly. I couldn't tell you how many times we've actually just put in mesh a couple of seasons just with the wheel because they forget about the back. And you just go corner to wheel to the mesh coming that way. So it's just like 1, 2, 3, and it's killer. That's what I would do right there. I mean, with mesh, you can go with 2 tags. Just make sure the 2 tags work in every single formation that you run mesh in. And you should be fine right there.
Yeah, that's awesome, Coach. Music to my ears as a running back guy, getting that guy a chance to go vertical. I love it. Thanks again, Coach. Really appreciate it. And, I don't feel like there's too many people who are watching our stuff that haven't heard of Coach before. But if you haven't checked out, Coach Mckie's stuff, he's been an incredible resource for me, just watching his channel grow and learning along with the great guests you've brought on there. And thanks for making the time for us tonight, Coach. And, enjoy pizza night tomorrow. That's popping up in the chat there. So
can't wait, man. Thanks.